Hello everyone. In this session, we will try to understand what is Docker Compose. In the previous session, we have seen how to create an image, and with that image, how to create a Docker container. If we have single application to deploy or single service to deploy, we can write the commands to build the image using docker build dot command, and to run that image as a container we can write the command again docker run command with an image. Consider if you have the multiple services, right? So you have the multiple services, two services, 3 4, and say for example this is service 1 you want to create as a container, this is service 2, and this is service 3, and this is service 4. When you have the multiple images and you want to run that images as a multiple containers, so how do you deploy, how do you run those containers in a Docker engine? You can do it individually one by one by creating an Docker containers with the service 1, that means image 1, service 2, image 2, and service 3 and service 4 you can easily create, but it will be hectic to manage and it will be very difficult to create in a short span of time. You need to run the command with the individual services. You need to run the docker build command again and run the container run command here also. For service 2 also you have to build and run, service 3 build run and service 4 build run. So this will be a problem. So what we can do by using this Docker Compose is you can write the command in a single YAML file. In that single YAML file you define service 1 image, service 2 image, service 3 image and service 4 image. Once you define all the images or all the services in an YAML file, with a single command you can just deploy your containers in a Docker engine. So with this we will try to understand, to solve this problem, how we can deploy multiple containers with single YAML file. That YAML file we call it as a Docker Compose YAML file. We have two options, Docker Stacks and Docker Compose, both are similar. In this session we will focus on only Docker Compose, which deploys and manages container applications, multiple container applications or multi-container applications on Docker. Single engine mode. We have a Docker installed, Docker desktop is installed. When you install this Docker desktop, with this we will also get a Docker Compose. Docker Compose will be installed on top of Docker engine. You can see the command, what is the version of Docker Compose got installed. Docker hyphen compose, Docker hyphen compose and hyphen v. Yeah, Docker Compose hyphen v. Yeah, so we can see what is the Docker Compose got installed in top of Docker engine with the command Docker Compose hyphen v command. We did a mistake, compose hyphen v. So this is the version of Docker Compose got installed on top of Docker engine. Which Docker Compose will help us to deploy and manage multi-container applications. In a modern cloud native environment, the apps we are going to deploy, the application which we are developing or we will develop in the form of microservices. What this microservices means, when you are creating an applications, so say this is a front-end application, this is back-end, and with that we have payment module and ordering module, logging module, the another service. So these are microservices. We can call it as a microservices. This is service 5. So how do you deploy all 5 microservices? How do you run in a containers, multi-container, using a Docker Compose file? We'll try to understand how, we'll see, and also we will see practically how we can deploy all these 5 services With this example, I will just demonstrate how we can deploy two containers using a Docker Compose. Deploying and managing lots of small microservices like these can be hard. This is where the Docker Compose will come. So how do you define all the services in a single YAML file, and how do you deploy? I have created one Docker Compose YAML file, and this Docker Compose YAML file, it has the two services which we have defined. So this is the syntax we need to follow when you are writing a Docker Compose YAML file. So it comes with the services. In that services, I have two services. One is Redis services and another one is Postgres services, and I have a networks. What is the network we defined here? Local network for demo. That means these two services come under this network. There will be other commands also there. We can create a multiple volumes and all that we can see in a upcoming sessions. But in this session, you have to understand the services. In this service, two images I am running as a container. One image, Redis image, and the second image, Postgres image. These two images I am running as a container using this Docker Compose file. How we can run? How it is running? How we can run? That is because we have already installed the Docker Compose on top of Docker Engine. So that got by default got installed when we installed the Docker Desktop. So here I have taken a two services an example. So like this, you can still create a multiple service. That means multiple images you can define here. So there is no limit. You can n number of services you can define. Other images also you can give, like front end your application, the image path, back end application, image path, payment service application, that image path. You can add the multiple images, and you need to give the service names here with the service names, and you need to provide the image names and that service in which network it should run. So it will, if you are not providing any network here, it will consider it as a default network. And the environment, Postgres passport, this is for Postgres container, it is required, the Postgres passport is required. When we are running individual containers, we used to define, we used to build a docker build dot command and docker run command, but now which is not required. The command to run this Docker Compose is, I'll just show you the command. You can just say docker compose, docker hyphen compose hyphen f. The hyphen f, it defines where your Docker file exists in the folder path. The hyphen f, it defines, you have to mention that path. If you are not mentioning this hyphen f path, if you are not mentioning this, then Docker Compose file should exist in this folder. If you are not running the command which the Docker Compose is not exist, so you have to mention the file path. The file is present under C folder. This is the folder path and YAML. And what is the important command is up hyphen d. What is this hyphen d? It defines, it will show the commands, everything will be running in the background. So Docker Compose up hyphen d, this will pull the two images from the Docker Hub repository. Why it is taking from the Docker Hub repository? Because the default repository configured to the Docker when you are installed, it is a Docker Hub. That means this will pull your images which are there in a Docker Hub. It is just pulling, and it will create an image, and it should create two containers. It takes some time. So after execution, we have seen with a single command, Docker Compose up. This is a single command. It is pulled the image, two images, Postgres image and Redis image, and it is started. The two containers are running now with a single command. We can just re-verify whether the Docker is created the two containers, Redis container which we defined in the YAML file. One is Redis container and Postgres container. The command is docker ps. We can see two containers are running. This is a container ID and container image name. Postgres is taking the latest image and Redis is taking Alpine image versions. And this is the entry point command, and it is created 2 minutes ago. So now you can imagine with the only two containers, we have taken fraction of seconds, the two containers are created. Like that, if you have the 10 images, if you want to run 10 containers with the same single command, we can easily run. So if you are individually, if you are running the container, it is very difficult to manage, write the commands in each individual image. Rather, now by using a Docker Compose file, you can write the commands whatever you require. You can just add it in this file, networks, volume, whatever we need to create, you can just define in this compose file, and with just up command, it will just create the containers which you defined in the YAML file. And also we can remove these containers by using down command. So if you run this command docker compose -f the file path, and if you mention just down, it will just remove all the containers which you created. In a fraction of seconds it will just create, and it will just, fraction of seconds we can run the containers. So again, to define Docker Compose, it will help us to run multi-container application. The application which is having different services, we can call it as a microservices. By using a Docker Compose, you can run the microservices easily with a single command. To brief about the history of Docker Compose is, earlier we had a Fig tool when the Docker Compose did not come to in a picture. That Fig tool is developed in a Python and developed by Orchid company. Later Docker Inc company got acquired. Docker Inc acquires Orchid, and what Docker Inc renamed Fig powerful tool to Docker Compose. The Python tool, that Fig tool renamed to Docker Compose tool, which will help. Now we are continuing to create a multi-container applications using a Docker Compose file. It's a single YAML file. That's all about today's session. We will see regarding the volumes and all in upcoming session. Thank you.